want to welcome you to the Pantheon of M. I'm your host, Ray, and today we are looking at the worst of 2022. I have a list of my top 7 films. I would do top 10, but I didn't see too many films this year, so top 7. I'm kind of looking worst for wear because I wanted to make sure I fit the role of the worst of the year, and I'll look a little more spoofed up for the best of, which will probably be coming out maybe a little later in January. But for now, here's my list. At number 7, it's a tie, and I'm going to give it to actor Zac Efron. Now, I'm not going to dump on Zac Efron. I think he's actually a phenomenal actor. I think his portrayal, in terms of his physique of doing the up-and-coming film on the Von Erichs, is going to be an amazing film. His physical transformation, what he does for himself, and how dedicated he is to the art of the presentation of the characters that he portrays, whether it is the film I'm about to dump on, but his overall idea of choice. Like, he's fearless in his choices. I think he doesn't lean on his High School Musical liberties. I mean, he became a teen icon for that film, and he's an adult now. So he is an actor who I actually have great respect for, and I look forward to seeing his films, and actually saw his movies specifically because I thought these are bold choices of what he's done. Now, the movies for 2022 were misses, unfortunately, but I think as a character actor, which is what I think he's going for, I think he is trying to evolve and become a better actor, and doing these non-commercial films and just going for a real good meaty role, and going for either a story or a plot or a character that appeals to him. It says a lot about the man himself and what he's willing to do physically as an actor, as well as his performance. And so this is not a knock. The greatest beer run ever. This is based on a true story where he is a guy who goes to Vietnam to visit his friends who are fighting in the war. And he feels that he is very pro-war. Wants to give a beer to his guys who are doing it for America. Well, the guys are out there, they're doing it for us. They're soldiers, and he's not aware of the bigger picture of what was going on at the time. And so is the case of the time. I mean, there was protests, but not a lot of people knew what was going on. So it looks like his Santa Claus bag of endless beer went overseas. It co-stars Russell Crowe. The problem with this movie, it's neither a satire or a comedy. It's written by Peter Farrelly from the Farrelly brothers. It's written as one of the stories by Peter Farrelly. He's one of 3 writers who did this movie. And it's a movie that I'm going to say didn't sit well with me because it wasn't either funny nor was it really a satire, and because it's based on a true story. It's about a person coming to terms of the reality of war, who was sort of pro-war for the boys, who ends up being against the war, period. So it has a very serious tone to it, and because it's based on a true story. Now that's tied with a movie which I'm going to say really is a bad movie. It's Firestarter. It's a remake of a Stephen King book. The original one was starring Drew Barrymore and Martin Sheen and George C. Scott. And the movie, I think it was 83 when it came out. That wasn't necessarily a great film either. But this movie doesn't do any favors. I kind of like the original movie more than this film. The only difference is the special effects, much better. Special effects, here's a positive. The special effects definitely here are much more sophisticated than the original, and the choices of having Gloria Rubin taking over the role of Martin Sheen, so that there's a gender switch in this one, is the only progressive thing I'm going to say about it. And Zac Efron's performance as Andy McGee, who's taking the role over from David Keith's character, as the father for Charlie, he tries. There's an effort. The thing is, he's in it. He's truly, he's in that headspace to do the film. He's playing the character, and he's doing an all right job. But the film, nothing about this film is memorable. Nothing about this film is shocking. Nothing about this film is extraordinary. Nothing about this film will surprise you. And the ending is it is what it is. It's a Stephen King adaptation. And let's be honest, Stephen King films don't translate on the big screen. Historically speaking, its average isn't very good, and this is no exception. And that's unfortunate because I was kind of hoping for a better. I mean, if you have low hanging fruit with the '83 film, I think it was. So this film should be a lot better, and it wasn't. So at number 6, I'm going to give another tie, and that's going to go to Kevin Hart. I'm going to start off with the film that's not that bad, and that's The Man from Toronto, a Netflix exclusive. Stars Woody Harrelson as the Man from Toronto, which is something I had to get my mind around. Like, he's actually called The Man from Toronto. He's credited as the Man from Toronto. I thought it was just a confusion of the title, but when you get to the movie, you realize what it's all about. He's an assassin. Kevin Hart is mistaken for him, and it's about him trying to follow through because he's in a situation. It's a story of it's a situational comedy and mistaken identity, and it's neither funny or really that grimy. I mean, it's okay. It has its moments. The trailer kind of gives a lot away, which I think is good because you want to know what you're getting yourself into, and it kind of sets the tone for you. This movie, I'll put it to you this way. There's a movie that was made in Canada called The Wrong Man, starring Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall. That film is a story of mistaken identity with the killer. It was executed with comedy in mind. It is a Canadian film, so it has a Canadian kind of feel and look to it. So it may turn you off if you don't like real Canadian filmmaking, but it is much funnier with a lot more things going on, and the comedy is really, really rich. And that movie I could watch again and again, and it's funny for different reasons. This movie is a one mark joke, and it's sort of, you know what, giving the keys to Hart to run with it. I don't know if it's ad lib or I'm not sure what it is. And Woody Harrelson's playing it straight, and it's funny because Harrelson, his father was a hitman, and so he understands the perspective of like what you're seeing from the character. And I guess his environment where he grew up, he had a source to draw from for the character, and his character is quite menacing. So the comedy is there, but it's Netflix, and I think that's why it was in Netflix, because I don't think it would have done well in theaters. At number 5, Falling for Christmas, another Netflix exclusive movie starring Lindsay Lohan. This has been marketed as her comeback film. This movie, okay, here's what I'll say. I'm going to start with a positive. I think Lindsay Lohan is an extraordinary actress. When you see her perform, she hasn't lost a step. She has not lost a step. She's a great performer. Chad Overstreet, I known him when he broke into the business. I mean, became well known for his performance in Glee, and him playing an adult, a father, a leading man. I think he's believable. I like his performance. I think both are tremendous actors. The problem is there is zero chemistry with Lindsay Lohan and Chad Overstreet. You could have two heads of lettuce together. They have more chemistry than Lindsay Lohan and Chad Overstreet. An example I could give you as a reference is a movie called The Haunting of Sharon Tate, which was produced by Hilary Duff, starring Hilary Duff. The actors, the entire cast of that film, they could be in a concrete 4x4 prison cell. Okay, all the cast giving their lines on cue to each other, with no windows but just maybe 15 inches of concrete between them, and it'd be the exact same performances if given on cue. Is the chemistry they have amongst themselves and the believability of communication amongst themselves. But there is zero chemistry or communication between the two of them. They could be 1,000 miles apart giving that line, and they give the exact same emotion and connection between them, whether they're 2 feet across or across from different nations. It was that bad. At number 4, Secret Headquarters. This is a Spy Kids type of film where Charlie is a son of a superhero played by Owen Wilson, who's like, consider him like Iron Man. If Iron Man was like the greatest superhero of all time, this is a brand new IP, so it's not stealing from Marvel, but like he's a tech genius with the greatest gadgets of the world. And Charlie and his friends stumble upon his lair, which is located under his home in the basement. And the problem with this movie is, it stars Michael Pena as the villain. With that in the back of my mind talking about it, this movie is really, really bad. 85% of this film takes place in a basement, this lair, and it's mostly CGI, green screen, what have you. And you do feel sort of like it's really confined to a green screen base. It's a basement. Because the action in the movie takes place the majority of the time in this secret layer underground. These kids are in a basement, and all the action takes place there. Really, dialogue, action, the resolution, highlights, the climax, the intrigue. It's all in this layer because it's secret. It's called Secret Headquarters, so therefore, ergo, it takes place underground in this secret layer. And that is confining. It's a very confining thing, and it's doesn't really contribute to the film in a way that you want it to be. Also, the fact that Owen Wilson is in this film, he's an absentee father. It doesn't bode well for the character what he performs. Even though he's a good guy, and the reason behind what he does is because he's a superhero. By night and by day he's a father, but as a father he's an absentee father. So there's a lot of messages in it that's going to be positive, obviously, and it's coming to father and son and the whole nines. It's going to get you there, but the movie really is a well not crafted film. It's really poor. At number 3, The Bubble, a Netflix exclusive film directed by Judd Apatow, with like a super all-star cast. I mean, across the board. This movie isn't really that funny, and the problem is it takes place. It's a dinosaur hunting movie thriller that takes place in a bubble, meaning it takes place where the cast is in an environment because they're in the pandemic. Now this movie was released during the pandemic, so. Which I don't think is probably it's too much life imitating art to the point where it wasn't. People didn't need to see this, and we don't need to feel this since we are already going through this. The setup wasn't that good to begin with. The actors are being wasted tremendously, and the story could have been a whole lot better, and it wasn't. And it was sort of disappointing across the board on many things. The trailer looks more exciting than the actual movie, if that's kind of gives you an indication, which might be a reason why it's on Netflix, because they probably knew it wouldn't have sold too well on a big screen to make its money back if that was the case. At number 2, it's The King's Daughter. This movie I went into knowing absolutely nothing about. I saw the poster, and I remember the slogan: "The King, His Daughter, and an Unknown World." And I knew nothing about other than him being a king and his daughter. And I'm a big fan of Pierce Brosnan, and Kaya, who plays the daughter. I'm a fan of her work. Her last few projects that I've seen, even the thriller with the alligator. I forget the name of that one. Crawl, I think it was called Crawl. Was it called Crawl? Anyways, it was good. I mean, she is in terms of drama or action. Whatever she's in, I will go see her films. And Pierce, whether it's Bond or Remington Steele or whatever it is, I mean, he's a charismatic and just appealing kind of character actor. And Dr. Fate, he was one of the highlights of Black Adam. So, I was all into this movie and didn't know what to expect. So, this movie off the top is a wild ride. Okay, he plays King Louis XIV. He's obsessed with wanting to be immortal. So he captures a mermaid and seeks to steal the mermaid's life force for himself so he can be immortal. Before that happens, his daughter befriends the mermaid and that's the story. I mean, that in a nutshell is, I mean, that's oversimplifying the story, and then what happens after that or during that process of the friendship and all that is what this movie is about. But man, this movie was bad. This movie, oh god, I think it's because I had no idea what to expect, and of course, you go in with an open mind. But man, I did not know where this was going to go, and I did not know like this was the premise, because it looked nice. Here's the thing that's more fascinating, and I'll be honest with you. The movie was filmed in 2014. The film wrapped in 2015, but didn't get released until 2022. I would love to see a documentary of what the process was of this film finally reaching an audience, because that seems more appealing than the actual film itself. You know, it's kind of like Don Quixote with the whole Taylor Gilliam and Johnny Depp film, getting that movie made. Because the movie, you know, the documentary film was more interesting than the actual film itself. And that is something that I would love to have seen. Even if there was like a featurette for this movie, I would love to see that, because like what happens behind the scenes must be more exciting than what the actual film was about, in my estimation. Number one on my list is a movie that I'm a fan of its director, I'm a fan of its actor, and unfortunately, the past collaborations of both the director and the actor, none of their previous works I enjoyed. Which, now that I think about it, which only because I'm doing it now, I realize, oh yeah, their previous works I'm not a fan of. But as individuals, their history or filmography of work as a director and as actors and as producers, I'm a fan of. And that is Robert Zemeckis and Tom Hanks. And that is Pinocchio. Pinocchio has been done, I think, 3 times for 2022. I mean, there's the Guillermo del Toro movie, there's a Tom Hanks movie, and I believe there's another animated movie of animated movie of Pinocchio that was done this year. I could be wrong, but out of the two, I mean, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is, I mean, because Guillermo is Guillermo, and then you know you can expect what you can expect from Guillermo, like it's a backdrop of war, which was done in like Pan's Labyrinth with this, and there are certain things about what he's done, artistically speaking, you can expect and kind of like really appreciate and just admire like what he's trying to achieve. With the Zemeckis movie, the relationship of the two and their journey individually, wow, it's lost. it's oh man, it's lost. Yeah, nothing about this movie I liked. You know, I grew up watching the Disney cartoon movie, and it's very enduring. It's horror. I mean, there are some parts of it that is considered horror, and there are parts of the story or the mythology of Pinocchio that is harsh and scary. You know, and parts of this movie that they chose to draw onto, and the parts that they skipped, or parts that they did or focused on, or how they approached it, I just found they missed the marks. Like everything was just not. I thought it just missed points of where it should have focused on, or where it should have been like, you know, reflective on. I felt it didn't do as well. I felt the connection between Pinocchio and Geppetto wasn't really there. I mean, I like Tom Hanks as an actor. I think he's just. I mean, I remember him fondly as a comedic actor. You know, and of course, in recent decades, the last couple of decades, I mean, he's able to do like dramatic roles and been a producer for many great films like The Earth to the Moon, and The Pacific, and you know, all these like historical movies and TV series and films he's done, whether it's A League of Their Own or whatever it is. I mean, as an actor, he's great. And Zemeckis, from, you know, Back to the Future to like. Man, all these movies and shit like he's produced and directed, it's just like this. And you look at Polar Express, which was like scary animation, and but this movie, not that great. Yeah, it was disappointing. I I don't know if it's because I'm familiar. I has to be. I think it's because I'm familiar with the story of Pinocchio, and maybe I'm not saying maybe. If I knew nothing about Pinocchio and had zero concept of what Geppetto was, and the story of the two and how he was, where he came from and where he ends up, and what the journey is, and the plights of this doll and what he goes through to become what he is and where it lands. If that was never embedded somewhere in my subconscious, and I just watched this movie with a clean slate, like almost you know a tabula rasa kind of mentality going into this, then maybe I probably enjoy this movie. And unfortunately, there is references that I'm familiar with, or just maybe keystroke marks of the story that you should nail. And this movie didn't nail it as well as I would have wanted to have nailed to get to the point of the movie, and that's unfortunate. So that's my number one. It's because it's a movie or cartoon or a story that is has sparked generations, and as such, it doesn't live up to that stature of its power, of how it has affected the generations over its story. And it doesn't have to be a Disney movie. It's just one of those films where it just should have been a lot more. Happy New Year. I will see you very soon. Take care.